Oh, yay. Hi.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Chris.
So,
Oh, okay.
every single pour.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris DeBona, but you're not really here for me. You're here for our friend Dan Lyons. So, say hi.
Hi, that's terrifying. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And I don't know if can we do questions or not really, right? We'll talk.
Yeah, we're gonna mostly
okay.
talk, yeah.
I did a talk at Google Cambridge recently. It was really, really fun, really good. And it was full of, I learned a new word, Greyglers.
Greyglers, yes.
Which is what the people who work at Google who are over a certain age, let's say, are, either they call themselves Greyglers or people call them that behind their back. I don't know, but
No, they've been calling themselves that as long as I've been here. So,
yeah?
I mean, like
So
12 years. at
And it
least.
was a lot of Greyglers because my book is sort of about, being old and trying to work in tech and in a startup with young people. So I had all these like old Google people. It was very skewed, very old, and it was really not very old. I mean, 40. Yeah, there's a guy with gray hair. See, look at him. He's like a Greygler. And no, it was great. It was really, really fun. It was really a really cool, interesting group of people. So yeah.
We don't actually need you to like us, but it's nice that you do.
No, that's the other thing. I forgot. I had a little. I opened up my presentation there. So I really just sincerely mean this. Like, I really love Google, and I know people hate Google and think it's like the evil empire, and I've always felt the other way. And my whole life is built around Google products. I realized this recently. Like, I've been using Android for years. Everything on my computer is on Chrome. I have Google Calendar, Gmail. Like, basically, my whole online life is based around Google. And I started out, I should do the same here, by just thanking all these people, because I know it's really hard, and I could never make any of these things that I use every day, and I don't know how you guys make them. But seriously, like Google Maps and navigation and Waze, so my whole life, I realized recently, was more or less based on Google Cloud, I put my photos there. So I do sincerely feel grateful to all of you for everything you do.
I hope we continue to earn that from you. I think I said that earlier with the Android stuff.
For me, there was a moment. I was in Germany several years ago, like 2012, and we were.
So I'm so resisting making old person jokes, right? So I'm 44, but so I'm old by your definition. But I was like, so was this before the wall came down, or? Sorry, I just got to get it out there, but
This was when there was still an Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yeah, the Habsburgs,
Right before they killed the Archduke.
It was fake Franco.
That was my first alter ego. And no, but we were driving into the Munich airport, and I had an Android phone. I had put a SIM card in it, and I remember thinking, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we had a reservation at the Holiday Inn Munich airport.
Which are much nicer in Europe. Holiday Inns are much nicer in Europe,
well, it was still pretty cheap. But anyway, but we were sitting at the airport, and we were flying in the morning, so we had booked this hotel. It was the last night of our vacation, and my wife said, we're all stressed out, and the kids are there, and we have to, everything's a rough day. And I said, I don't even know where the hotel is. I don't know where we are. And I said, hold on. I had the phone. I said, navigate to Munich Airport Holiday Inn. And it went, doo-doo. Okay, you're on the right road. Well, I was like, oh my God, this stuff works, right? It was amazing to me.
Wow.
And I know that's stupid, right? But it was so
it's not
simple. I remember and I thought, like, how did a bunch of human beings in Mountain View make that happen? How did that, anyway.
Wow.
I feel like the unfrozen caveman, like that. You're crazy.
I'm just a simple caveman lawyer.
It confuses me. Anyway, let's talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You shouldn't apologize.
Yeah.
I mean, they're here to listen to you talk about random things in Europe.
Random things on vacations. No, but thank you.
So, congrats on the success of the book. I mean,
Thank
you're
you.
all New York Timesy bestsellers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things I sort of wanted to ask you is it sort of bittersweet to have a very successful book in print, when print is a medium? I searched my email for the earliest mention of Dan Lyons, both how we first met each other through our friend Erica, but when I first heard of you, and it was actually in a Google alert, or the equivalent in 1999, I was on the PR Newswire stream. And basically it came down to an article about how Forbes is retracting a bit in their print, right? And so the entire publication has been a redesign slated for a September debut, smaller basically, but then they see nice things about what they're doing, but it's a much smaller publication, because it's starting to sort of wane, right? So you write a book. You're like, I know what I'll do. Print's dying. I'll write a book. I mean, do you ever does this ever hit you? And
Not until just now, actually, just now. Thank you for
Yeah,
that. Well, I mean, most of the sales are ebooks, to be honest.
I
I mean,
bet.
I would,
And that's
I
how
would
I
say
read.
the vast majority are ebooks, and you know, I think, and audiobooks. A huge.
Did you record it yourself? Or
Yeah,
did you have
I did it
like,
myself.
You know,
No,
like a
they wanted me to do it
notable
because I have
voice.
this Boston accent, and they thought it would. They like to have the author do their own book, apparently.
Yeah, no, they do.
And so I spent like a week in a recording studio and did it. But those are most of the sales. I think that sells way more than print right now, at least on my book. And the kind of people who would buy this book are probably ebook readers. And I think in some ways, it's a better thing for authors because it's a real impulse buy. You can see something, hit the link, and then bam, download it to your Kindle or your tablet or whatever.
Download it to your tablet. Just because you've heard of it here. You see what I'm trying to do?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, no. So I think there are a lot of impulse buys by people, with ebooks. So no, I think books are still, it's not completely over.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's it's a tough bit. The book business is obviously
Really tough.
challenged. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know how many of you have read the book. Just raise your hand.
Oh, my
And
God, yeah.
Live streamers, raise your thumb.
Yeah.
Whatever you do. So it was in fact sort of the trials and tribulations of print that led you to go to HubSpot, which is the subject of the book.
Right. So, in a nutshell, it was that I went from Forbes to Newsweek, and I knew Newsweek even when I joined, which was 2008. I knew, okay, they're not going to be around forever. But I really wanted to work at a place like that before the media business completely blew up, because I had very high regard for Newsweek and what they did, and the people who were working there were fantastic journalists. It was really, honestly, I would pinch myself when I would walk in there and see the people I was working with. And so I got laid off, and I thought not only was my company kind of going out of business, my whole industry was going out of business. And
Heartbreaking, really.
it's very, very sad. Yeah. So and I have young kids. I have twins who are now 10. They were 6 or 7 then. And I thought,
And you were about to go on a trip that was going to be so
we're
much
about to go on this
fun.
big vacation.
Yeah.
And
To Munich.
Yeah, that trip that I was talking about. And I thought, I have to do something. I have to start a new career, but I'm 50 years old. And I mean, it's not that big a leap. You can go into public relations. A lot of journalists do that. And at the time that I was looking at this, there was this big trend that's still kind of going on. It's kind of played out though, where companies were hiring journalists to build their in-house newsroom. So they had, Intel, Oracle, Microsoft all have little news operations. Qualcomm has one. And I thought, I could get in on this corporate journalism thing and maybe start a new career out of that. And that should have a 10 or 15 year run. As it turns out, I don't think it's really working out. A lot of journalists who have gone for and VC firms are big ones. They're all hiring like their pet journalist who then writes about the industry in a way that kind of benefits their worldview, right? And Andreessen Horowitz is probably the best at this. They have this incredible operation. They have basically a content factory with podcasts and analysts and the whole thing, and they will churn out stuff to their advantage, I guess, right? So it's sort of quasi-legitimate when I thought, there were no other good journalism jobs. It wasn't like, I called Time, a lot of Newsweek people who had left landed at Time, and I called them and they're like, sorry,
frying pan to fire,
but I thought, okay, but they were like, no, done. It's like musical chairs in the media business now. Everybody is clinging to their jobs, and every year there's fewer chairs, and people my age are just getting spun out. So. And I read all these stuff about reinvention, and you could start over and be a lifelong learner. And I thought, that's very exciting. I'll do that. And I always wanted to work at a tech company because I thought covering tech companies, you get very jealous of the people you're covering. And you think, man, it's like being a kid with your nose pressed against a glass, looking at this fantastic world. Yeah, like you go in and you talk to them, but you never really find out what it's like behind the curtain because it's all stage managed and PR. But I thought it always looked like so much fun. I had friends who went to Microsoft early on, had a really good time. Yeah, so I went to work at a little company. Instead of going to a big tech company, I went to a little one in Cambridge called HubSpot. And
must have been really close to where you were living. I mean, it must seem like a dream.
Right, so I lived in Boston. So that's the other problem. It's like, well, what tech company? We're going to have to move. And that was kind of disruptive to our family. And I like it out here, but anyway, I happened to get lucky and found a place right in my backyard. So I thought, okay, that's a good, easy step, and it's a younger, smaller company, so maybe there'll be more opportunities. It'll be growing. They haven't even gone international yet, so there's all this growth ahead of them. So that might be a good place to be.
So was it in your HubSpotter? What do they call themselves?
HubSpotters.
Yeah, because
they were very much influenced by Google, so they wanted to be HubSpotty, like you guys talk about being googly. There's a googly way of doing things. There's a HubSpotty way of doing things. We had those. What do you guys?
Something you need to clean off like fabric, like with one of those Tide pens.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's HubSpot.
Oh, you got a HubSpot on you.
Oh, you get I do have one. And then they had, what is the thing you guys have for quarterly evaluations or annual evaluations?
So we have the whole 360 evaluation.
No, but it's like not KPIs or DRIs.
Oh, OKRs.
OKRs. So at one point they said,
key results.
yeah, we're going to have OKRs just like Google, but they didn't really know how to do it, but they were like, well, Google does it, so it must be good. Let's try doing that.
And we got it from someone out of Intel.
It was John Doerr, right?
Wasn't it John Doerr? It was one of those guys, yeah. But he put it across the valley and everywhere.
So we tried, so we had all this stuff. So that was really cool and foreign to me, but it was like interesting to learn about it. And so yeah, that was the idea.
So you're in this thing, and you said this in the book. You said, look around the room. A year from now, a lot of the people around you won't be here anymore. Did they really go down this road?
There's a lot of brainwashing. So it's like very culty. And so, journalists tend to be very cynical, and it's the culture from one newsroom to another sort of is the same. If you meet journalists from wherever they are, they generally all kind of, it's a tribe. And
they like drinking the brown water,
Yeah.
Whiskey.
They're all negative and cynical. And like that was the thing, I couldn't get used to it. So everybody's so positive and so upbeat. At one point in the meeting, I was like, you guys are all so cheery, like I just can't stand it. And they were like, well, would you rather be with like negative, angry people? I was like, yes, dude, that's why I spent my whole life with negative, angry people.
The whole world is
like
that.
negative, angry people. Yes. And they, so it's very relentlessly upbeat, but we had training, and the training was like, supposedly to learn how to use the product, but it really was like, you don't know how special you are to be here. Like thousands of people competed to get this job that you have. It's harder to get in here than to get into Harvard. That's how exclusive it is here. Now, they're all right out of college, and they're young kids, and they're all, like freshly scrubbed, and they're all like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And they're like, but this is only half. The next step is whether you can make it here. And like, half these people aren't gonna be here in a year. That's how hard it is. And I'm just like, old. We went around, they said, like, talk about like what makes you special. Let's all introduce ourselves. What's your superpower? And they used to talk about having superpowers and being rock stars and engaging in delition, which meant delighting customers
So
and
that's
stuff.
how you pronounce it, delition.
Delition.
I didn't
It's like
know,
delight
deligatin,
turned into a noun. Delight is already a noun. Delight is a noun, but then they made another noun, delition, which is the process of delivering delight to people.
No,
I don't even know. No, I don't think it's a gerund. Anyway, so they went around. They're like, well, what makes you special, unique? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm the only one in the room that's had a colonoscopy. Like.
I know what my PSA level is.
I have high cholesterol. I have to take a statin every day. I take Lipitor. Because they're all like, people don't know this, but I play guitar. So I was like, oh, great. So it was like.
I own a corgi.
Yeah, the main guy, the training guy, his thing was he played in a rock band, a hair metal cover band on weekends. I was like, oh, cool. And then the company would hire his band for like every event. I think they got him for free. So we had the same hair metal band at every corporate event, playing the same songs. And
Was it like mostly Duran Duran covers?
No, yeah, it was awful. It's just really bad. But
like
he's a nice guy, so I should say he'd probably watch this now and hate me. So it was like that. It was
filled with nice people. I mean, it's no matter where you go. I mean,
no, they're nice people, but
mostly. Somewhat.
Just very chaotic and disorganized. And so the long story short is I did this thing, it didn't work out. I realized after a while, like, I don't belong here, and I really should just be a journalist or do something, and that's really what I had to do. And then halfway through it, I got this like call out of the blue to go work on Silicon Valley, the TV show on HBO, and I was like, it was like going from like, the Steve Jobs line about the ice water to people in hell? It was like that. It was like, oh shit, I was at the Adobe Digital Marketing Summit in Salt Lake City. I was gonna kill myself. I'm seriously thinking like, if you commit suicide in like Salt Lake City in a hotel, like in a Marriott, I don't know, it's kind of a horrible way to die. It doesn't leave, but I'm thinking, okay, I'll do it.
And a little bottle of 3-2 beer.
Yeah, I got a bottle of Ambien. If I took it all, probably could do it, right? I don't think that's a cowardly way out, right? You got to do it, So,
but I'd imagine the Marriott has like a special elevator for all the suicide victims.
Suicides. Yeah, they get you out the back. So I'm like, I seriously sitting there thinking like, this is the worst moment of my life. This is as low as my life has ever. Like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I was working at Newsweek interviewing like really cool people, and now I'm like here. And I got this call saying, do you want to work on a TV show? Because I had developed a show based on Fake Steve back in 2010.
So Fake Steve Jobs, I don't know if you're old enough to remember Fake Steve Jobs.
See, one guy, yeah. So I did
He's
this
like,
Fake Steve Jobs
Namaste.
book.
Yes.
But people don't know this, but I wrote a book based on Fake Steve Jobs that nobody bought. And then, but it got developed. A guy from Curb Your Enthusiasm, the guy who made Bruno and Borat, Larry Charles. He read the book and he was like, oh, I really like this, let's do a TV show. So I worked with him and we developed it. We sold it to a cable network called Epix. We wrote all these episodes and then it never got shot and it kind of all just died away. But then the Silicon Valley guys, the main writer in Silicon Valley was also on Curb, and those two guys know each other. So when that show got picked up, Alec Berg.
Yeah.
So Alec Berg, and I had meetings with him about Fake Steve that never worked out. But so he said, oh, come out and work. Do you want to come out and work on season 2? So I worked on season 2 and then on season 3, which is the one that's airing now. I did go back to HubSpot briefly after season 2, but just for a couple months. It really went downhill fast. But I had always wanted to see this. You know the story people tell, like every friend of mine who works in corporate America has a story of either they did this to someone or had it done to them or both, where the company doesn't want you anymore, but they can't fire you, or for whatever reason they figure they can't fire you, so they have to just make you miserable so you'll leave. Like just make your life worse and worse and worse and worse, so finally you just go, right? And they started doing that to me, and I was like, this is awesome, right? Like, this is so cool. Like, I had this crazy boss who had been like a really good friend of mine, but clearly had got the message, like, no, he's gotta go. And I was like, every day I would come in like thinking, like, what is he gonna do today? Like, this is so amazing. Like, what crazy?
Is this when you started bringing Molly into the conversation?
That was earlier. There was, that was a moment when I knew I didn't fit in. So a few months in, I had we got a message that the co-founder, the CTO, had written this big article about management for LinkedIn. He's a LinkedIn influencer, and this is our.
We're not really going to take questions from the audience, but
The Gopher.
this is the Go Gopher. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
You can find this article if you look up online, Dharmesh Shah, and the headline is "Your customers are not selfish, ignorant control freaks," something like that.
That's what leadership is for. Yeah.
And his point was that he had come up with this great breakthrough, which was you should bring a teddy bear to meetings. He was bringing a teddy bear to meetings, and the teddy bear would sit in a chair, and it would be a stand-in for the customer. So that in the meeting, you would always be thinking of the customer. You'd always be solving for the customer by having the teddy bear there, right?
I'd like you to address the Gopher when you talk about this.
Because he's the customer.
This is our
So, and he had a picture. He had a real picture of a real meeting with the teddy bear sitting next to our CMO,
Funniest shit
right?
you've ever seen.
Drinking a Red Bull. There's like a little Red Bull in front of the teddy bear. The Red Bull looks really. I mean, the teddy bear looks really pissed off, and her name was Molly. And
The teddy bear was named Molly, and she was a single mother from.
well, they had buyer personas. So we had Mary Marketer and we had Ollie Owner, who's a small business owner. So they combined it and made Molly the teddy bear. So I worked with a guy, my boss, who was a young guy. We sat like screen to screen, at a table, like at a desk, and he was pretty cool. He's like he once wanted to be a journalist. He thought he was pretty cynical, and so this article came out, and I leaned around my screen. I was like, dude, did you read that article? It's like, oh, yeah, it was good. It's like, no, but the teddy bear thing. Did you read the teddy bear thing? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's crazy, right? That's freaking nuts, right? And he's like, well, no, startups are kind of, they're kind of, eccentric. And I was like, no, come on, that's fucking crazy to bring a teddy bear to meetings, right? And he was just not going to agree. This guy had worked at Google, right? Early on, right out of school. So I said to him, are you telling me when you were at Google, if Larry or Sergey announced that they were bringing a teddy bear to meetings and it was going to stand in for the customer and you were all going to take it seriously, like nobody would make fun of that, nobody would mock that? Because I think they would put him in an asylum, right? He's like, well, startups are different. But that's when I knew, like, okay, I got to get out of here. Because I called a friend of mine who had been a journalist and went into marketing. I said, is this normal?
Normal.
Teddy bear thing. It wasn't that the teddy bear was crazy. It was that nobody would laugh at the teddy bear. That's what got to me. Like in any newsroom, there's occasionally some crazy managing editor who might do something like that, but everyone would go out and buy a teddy bear and put bondage gear on it, or hang it from nooses, or would do terrible things, would sodomize the teddy bears. We would just do terrible things to teddy bears to like mock the guy, but nobody did that. Everybody was just like, yeah, this is awesome, teddy bears.
Let's ruin for Molly.
And when my book came out, the company published a response to some things, more or less. Like the other thing they had was when they fired people, they called it graduation. Which I thought was crazy, right? And they would say, we'd get this email saying, hey everybody, just want to let you know that Derek has graduated and he's going to go off. We're so excited to see what he's going to do with his superpowers on his next big rock star adventure. And I was like, you fired that guy, right? Like, you fired his ass. Like
Like a ninja, he's gone stealthy into the night.
Yeah, he's going to take his ninja superpowers. Like, and they would say, literally, those are the words. Those are the real words. And you look over and the guy's desk is empty. He's just gone. He's just vanished. He's just disappeared. And you never knew he was leaving, right? My first week there, I had lunch with a woman, young woman right out of college who wanted to write a book. She's like, you wrote a book. Can you talk to me about writing a book? Yes, we go have lunch. She's really great. She had these great ideas about millennials and marketing to millennials. Great. We talked about it. And that night we get an email, I forget it, I don't want to say her name, but anyway, so-and-so has graduated and we're so excited. She's leaving the company and she's moving on to her next thing. And so I called her and I was like, dude, I emailed her, I said, how come you didn't even mention this at lunch? She's like, I didn't even know. Like, she said, I just got a call saying you graduated, bye, don't come back tomorrow. Like, that's it, see you later. And after my book came out, someone wrote to me saying, she got her first job out of college, she got hired to work in HR, her life dream was to work in HR, which,
No, there are people.
I'm not judging,
they're
right?
very
Okay,
nice.
so,
No, like seriously, like a good HR person.
yeah, no, right?
Awesome.
And she had all these big ideas. 3 months in, they called her to a meeting and said, you know what, you just don't seem excited enough. You're gone. Take your stuff and go.
Where's your delation?
Yeah, and they didn't, yeah, where's your delation? Don't even take your stuff. They said to her, we'll pack your stuff and mail it to you. Just leave this meeting right now, walk out and go to your car and never come back, right? 3 months in. And then they called her the next day and said, we didn't realize you have a lot of stuff. You have to come in yourself and get it. It's too much to mail. And so
really
they made her
heavy.
come into this walk of shame with a box and fill it up and then leave, But it was just like, so it's just crazy. And I called this friend of mine who had been at like a bunch of big companies like Cisco and stuff, and then had gone to a startup. And he had done really well at this startup. And he said to me, look, this is the secret, the little secret of startups that nobody knows is that they're all like this. They're all out of control. There's no management. Nobody knows what the F they're doing.
Don't have any processes.
There's no management, and it's like.
And it's like 25-year-olds who are like, wait, I have a staff of how many people I have to, and what's a budget? What's a P&L?
Yeah. So he's like, this is normal, just go with it. And I was like, okay. So, and then I was gonna leave, and then somebody else said to me, you're a comedy writer, you're a satirist, and you've stumbled into like this pot of gold. Like, this is amazing, funny stuff. So I realized, I was so wrapped up in like why the job wasn't working out that I never saw like, oh my God, this is really good stuff. And then,
Gold mine.
yeah, like for comedy.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing, there was actually even a bigger story about, I think, diversity, about what culture fit, what I think culture fit is kind of an insidious thing. I came to think that it's actually a code word for like lack of diversity, but if we celebrate it and call it something good, it sounds great to have a bunch of just white guys in their 20s.
This is
like,
actually why
you know what I mean?
We used to talk about googliness of incoming candidates, and I got tired of it. I was like, no one actually knows what this means. It's just bullshit,
Oh, really?
In some ways. I mean, in the context of hiring, because it's like, it's a way for people to hire people who are like them.
Right.
And it's like, how about you find me somebody who you think is the exact opposite of googly, or the exact opposite of what you are, I mean, within the realm of engineering, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's these terms that they throw around so blithely, and we all chuckle and think it's funny, but in the end, it's like it's people's lives you're talking about, you know? And so much of our lives are spent at work, and it's like, we want a wonderful place to work, but not at the cost of, our humanity. Sorry, I don't want to go off on that.
I agree, and I think they said that when I first met some of these guys. They said the line that you hear a lot in Silicon Valley with startups anyway is like, we like to hire people that I'd like to go for a beer with after work, right? And I think that's a terrible reason to hire someone.
Or finger paint with them.
Yeah, we did finger painting. We had a thing called Fearless Friday. We got this email one day. Do you want me to tell the story? So saying, okay, one of the people on staff had read Sheryl Sandberg's book, and there's something in there about, her advice was do what you would do if you weren't afraid.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is decent advice.
it's good advice.
Yeah.
So she said, next 2 weeks from now on Friday, it's going to be Fearless Friday. We're gonna all stop work for the whole day. That was the other thing. They like the Google idea of the 20% off, which Google doesn't do anymore, right?
No, we do it, but it's honestly, for most people, this means 120% of time.
Oh, yeah. So
Actually, I did the math early on in my career. It was like 2007, where I added up like all the tech talks that you could go to and the 20% time and all the rest, and you end up working about 14 hours a week. If you take like all the breaks and all the
Sounds
lunches.
great.
And
And
I'm
free
like,
food.
that doesn't sound like it's real, And,
So it doesn't really.
And so obviously people don't go to every tech talk.
Yeah.
Not everyone does 20% time, or even, I'd say single percentage points, but that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's there for them, but reality is our jobs are there for us too. I'm a big believer in doing the job that you were hired to do. I mean, we talked about this earlier, and it's
Yeah.
the honor of that. So when things like Fearless Friday come up, I mean, what do you think? You're like, wait, you want me to come to work and not work?
Right, we have to do, the only rule was,
And in a newsroom, they're like, where's the article? This is the deadline. Produce.
unfortunately
right?
now in newsrooms also it's become like, you got to hit numbers, you got to get clicks, and you're trying to drive page views, and you're rewarded based on that. So that's part of the reason that this coverage of tech and everything else has become so bad.
That's
and I think
fan fiction, you know?
well, it's just that, you know, if you're working for a tech blog or the New York Times, whatever, if you cover Apple and you're very pro Apple, so you get a little bit of access, you're going to get page views because you're going to get people will read your articles and they'll love it. It's like the easiest. That's why Fake Steve took off. It wasn't because like I was writing anything good. It was just like there's such a huge Apple base. Then I realized, oh God, like and I've seen reporters tap into that. If you tap in and become like the Apple fanboy reporter.
It's very appealing because those numbers go up and you're like, look, I'm popular, and it fills you with a
Well, not only
good,
that, you're getting
warm
bonused
feeling.
at work. You're
And
getting,
the
I mean,
money's nice,
you're
too.
straight up bonus based on your traffic. I mean, if you're not getting traffic, you're going to get fired. Like and you know, the way to get traffic, like if you're stuck covering enterprise, like, you know, but it's important stuff to cover, but it doesn't drive page views. So you end up having to do like 10 articles a day. You're just trying to win with volume, right? So then you can't do any real reporting. You can't do any kind of real journalism. You're just aggregating other stories and putting some top spin on it, and maybe trying to be the other way. You know, you can try to get attention by being outrageous. You know, you see the bloggers who are like really combative and love to pick fights. So you get all this like it's just entertainment, and that's. I mean, that's actually a very serious problem in the media business, and I don't know how it gets fixed, because unless people stop measuring and rewarding people on traffic, on numbers, it's going to be very hard to, it's a race to the bottom. It just becomes a complete.
I mean, do you think we've hit a bottom yet? I mean, it seems like they keep on trying, you know?
Well,
to get
Donald
lower
Trump
and
is the
lower.
Republican candidate for president, so. So I don't know. I think we're still heading.
I assure you my fingers are long.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's 2016. Let's just put this on the record. I mean, he is. No, I mean that happened, right? That really happened, and the media I think is complicit in that. I think there's a reason for it, because Trump gets ratings. They love putting him on TV. It's driven by, it's the same thing. It's clicks and views, right? And he's the best thing that ever happened to TV news. Yeah. And I think print journalism didn't used to be like that, but they've been dragged into it now. And if you're a reporter, it's a reality. It's part of your life. You know? And I don't know. Sorry. It's a bad. Oh God. No. So this is why writing books is better, because you can actually go off and write a book. You can spend a year. You can do some reporting. You can write what you want to write and publish it, and maybe you make a living. I mean, I don't think you know, 1 in a million books you really make a lot of money on, but at least you can probably make a living and do what you want. So that's what I found when I was doing this. Is like, well, at least I can write what I want to write, and it's far from perfect. And you know, I would rewrite things. You know, I would always go back and rewrite anything and fix it. But whatever, you can do your work and do something you believe in, and maybe that's a way out for a media person. I don't know.
So in the description of the book, you say, look what happens when an old guy goes to a young company, right?
Yeah.
And so if we want to go to the next slide, you know, so in some ways you were anticipating, you know, the criticism, but in some ways, when you said that, you sort of drove the criticism in that direction. I mean, you don't present as an especially, you know, Grandpa Simpson sort of. We can switch back to the slide.
But I actually have one of my epigraphs. I have two. One is Dante's Inferno, which is essentially a book about midlife crisis, right? And then, you know, midway through this veil of whatever, I stumbled into a dark path. But then the other quote is from Grandpa Simpson, saying something like, "I used to be what's it, but then they changed what it is, so now I'm not with it. Oh yeah, I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was, and so I wasn't. What I'm with isn't it, and what it is I'm not with it anyway. So I get it. No, I felt really old, and I never had felt old before. But like one guy at HubSpot used to call me Grandpa. That was like his name for me.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah, right. Like, hey.
That guy was kind of a jerk.
Yeah, well, yeah. He was not.
Sorry, Scalawag. I mean,
He was
one
a
that used your
young
vocabulary.
fellow. He was. It was okay, but yeah. So I never felt really old before. But there's little bits and pieces of that felt it, and that was sort of their response was. The people who don't like it think, oh, it's just like an angry old guy ranting about working with millennials, and I don't have any hatred of millennials. It's fine. I actually was excited to work with young people because I loved that people would have new ideas. And the one big problem in the media business where I'd been was that you're stuck in a legacy company that has a legacy worldview. And for better, for worse, you have people inside that want to change, but it's very hard to change an old company and make it do things in a new way, right? It's just very, very hard, and it's not because they're bad people either. I mean, it's just that you're encumbered with this legacy. And I thought, maybe corporate journalism, maybe what people are doing there is going to be some part of how media gets reinvented. I don't think where I was specifically is going to be part of that, but things like BuzzFeed are easy to sort of dismiss as silly, but then maybe they're doing some good, interesting
but
stuff
every once in a while
too.
they'll do an article that's just like astonishingly good, and you're
Yeah.
like, where did that come from?
I mean, somebody's got to reinvent the media business. I don't know where it's going to come from, and it needs a business model. I mean,
So when old media called you, HBO says, "Hey,
Yeah,
we
it's
could
gone
really
in a
use you,"
heartbeat.
you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"I'm
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
TV's
yeah.
calling." I mean.
Yeah, and
so-
TV, mind you, I think the TV business model is challenged in a way, or is about to be, the way the magazine business was 20 years ago, say. I think they are heading into a period of disruption that even maybe people in Hollywood are aware of it. I think a lot of people who work there are not. They're like what we were like in the magazine business in the late 90s, like, well, this internet thing's coming, but yeah. I mean, they've fought it off for a long time, right? They've really, really fought it off and protected their model. But I do think that TV business is going to change, and it's going to change the same way ours was. A monopoly model that threw off huge amounts of money becomes a model that now throws off, 1/10 of what it used to generate, and then has to adjust to a newer, lower cost base, right?
So it's funny because if you look at your work on Silicon Valley, what would you pull out of season 1, season 2, season 3, where you're like, I'm so glad I got to tell that story, but then they stopped you and they said, if you keep going and basically turn it into reportage, people actually won't believe that this is happening in the startup world. I mean, did you ever hit that in the? Because I know that when I was,
you should say that Chris also has.
It's about you though.
No, but you consulted on the show too.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I think they've done that's really, really smart and really cool is they reached out to a lot of people in the industry, and they'll ask Chris, come talk to us about blank and tell us this and explain this and how would this happen. If we had a situation where the guy wants to do this, but then this happens, would that be at least plausible? And guys like you would say,
yeah,
and then maybe kind of not so much. And so at least they know when they're stretching reality or keeping reality. No, but they
Right. I mean, you must have had things where you're like, not even about HubSpot, but about some of the other things you've covered, and you say, and then this would happen, and they're like, no one's going to buy that.
Yeah, definitely. There are things that are like so funny in reality that are like, if you put it into a show, people would think it was made up.
Yeah.
But there are lots of elements of
Like
real
the teddy bear thing. I mean, you couldn't just bring that up. And people are like, what? That's
I think
that's
they fixed
contrived.
that. Yeah, that's like not going to work.
Yeah.
So, but like in this year's show, there was basically an arc where they bring in an old guy to be the CEO, an old guy, and his ideas are, he wants to go enterprise, he wants to put everything in a box, and he wants to make money real fast. And he has he explains to Richard that the product we're making is not the product you think it is. The product is the company. The product is our stock. And my job, I'm brought in here by the VCs. My job is to take your valuation that now is at 50 million or whatever, 100 million, whatever it is, and make it into 500 million by the end of this year. So whatever gets us to that is that's my product. My product is the company we're going to sell or take public. Whatever you're making in the engineering department is fine, but that's not really the product. And that was, I think, kind of real but very cynical, and that made it into the show.
Yeah.
But there are other things that I think are, I mean, they've visited Google a bunch of times, right? Haven't they?
That's how I ended up meeting them. They came here and they met a whole bunch of engineers.
You guys have been really good about having them in. Some companies, early on, didn't want to meet them, and then after season 1, everybody wanted to meet them, and but then they were disappointed because it's just the writers. The actors don't show up, right? And it's just like, so the writers are not very interesting or attractive
What do you
people.
mean? They're all wonderful and
They're
beautiful
really
people.
nice, but it's like people always say to me, I get friends who in the industry will call me like, hey, we want to get TJ Miller to be speak at our conference. I'm like, yeah, of course you do. They don't want the actors, everybody. But the writers are just kind of, you've met them, right? They're schlumpy guys. They're just like, come in. I mean, they're
So
nice.
saying that
really
they're actually very
smart, funny guys, but they're not like, they're not
and
very glamorous.
they're moderately attractive.
No, I don't mean it to say like they're not. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say any names. There's a couple of very attractive
Mike Judge
writers.
is a very handsome man, very good-looking guy, right?
Yeah,
He
no,
is.
he is.
And everybody wants to meet him because they all love Beavis.
If
and
I were into
Butthead.
fellas, I'd take him out.
Yeah, right? I mean, same thing. Alec Berg, a very good-looking guy.
Yeah, very funny.
But as you go down the ladder, it gets... No, but I just mean it's not... I mean, they actually look a lot like
Nerds.
Nerds, yeah, and that's the thing, and they really are nerds. The guys who write for that show read all the tech blogs,
Yeah,
and
they're great.
they're you know, we have I'm not working on the show anymore, but we had a Slack, Slack room, so we'd all be trading links, and then we'd come in and talk about this thing that had really happened and how could we use that. But yeah, no, they're really, really avidly, and some of them never paid any attention to tech before, so it's kind of cool to see them really now get into it and
the
really
craft of comedy writing is applied to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, but those guys could turn around like next year and go write a comedy that was set on a hockey team, and they'd go learn everything about hockey. They're just really smart guys, but they really love like the field trips to Silicon Valley. One time they had a meeting with, I was with them, but I didn't get to go. It was only the big guys got to go, and I'm like one of the peons on the show. But the big guys got to have a dinner with Reid Hoffman, Mark Pincus, and Drew Houston, I think, from Dropbox.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who those guys were. Like one of the co-EPs went, and he's like a musician.
know
He's
these
like,
guys,
he was in punk rock bands, and like he's a great writer, but he doesn't know anything about tech. And the next day he said to me, yeah, you know these guys we met with? I was like, yeah, who are they? He's like, tells me, I'm like, no, dude, those are really big guys. He's like, oh, really? I don't know. And how much are they worth? I said, I don't know, like together, $5 billion? He's like, what? And I was like, yeah, that one guy, Reid Hoffman, he's a multi-billionaire. He's like, then he was like, oh my God. Actually one day we were walking around Google with Matt Cutts.
Yeah, sure.
And one of the producer guys, who's like not a writer, but just said to me, so how much, these people are all worth a lot of money? I'm like, yeah, kind of. He's like, how about this guy who's giving us a tour? I was like, oh yeah, he's loaded, Matt Cutts. He's like, and he's like, Jesus Christ, like they're all pissed. So they all get mad because they think they're like, BSDs in Hollywood because they have like, $10 million. I was like, oh yeah, sorry. You're at Google now, pal. I think that's part of the show is like the schadenfreude, not the schadenfreude, the reverse, the jealousy that Hollywood has of Silicon Valley. Like they're very jealous of it.
It's funny, because there's this refrain that goes through the coverage of Silicon Valley and Hollywood and movie streaming and all the piracy stories, and it's like they're like, Silicon Valley hates Hollywood, Hollywood hates Silicon Valley, and I'm like, have you seen how much these nerds like science fiction? I mean, do you have any clue how much they love what comes out of Los Angeles and, well, Vancouver for science fiction?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's an absurd love. It's almost like a spurned lover.
I mean, the way Silicon Valley feels about Hollywood.
Both.
Oh, both
ways.
Yeah.
And Hollywood, they're like, I can't believe that they were making money.
Yeah, when I was selling the Fake Steve show and going around to meetings and stuff, that's what I kept picking up at every network. It was just like, to them it was like this weird, strange world. Like the Googleplex was this hidden fortress, and they really wanted to visit it, but it was like another planet to them. And they were fascinated by it. They could tell that there was some strange culture there that they didn't get, and they thought it would be worthwhile. And I think it's suitable to comedy because they feel like they're not punching down, they're punching up. Like, you guys can take a joke because at the end of the day, you're laughing all the way to the bank, right? So, I think that's how they feel. Like, you can make fun of, you can make up a character like Gavin Belson and make fun of him because, like, at the end of the day, I don't think Sergey really cares, right? He's like, I don't think, not that Gavin Belson is based on Sergey, but he's certainly not. He's more of a Larry Ellison. I always thought he's more of a Larry Ellison.
Yeah, he's very much Larry Ellison.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Kind of Larry, yeah?
Yeah, because Larry has the weirds.
I never asked. I
don't need to be called to the Oracle trial.
Because the guys who created the show are no longer with the show.
Yeah.
And they created, the main characters, Gavin and those guys all came from them. So I've never been able to find out, like, who were you thinking of then, when you made that character. But I do think they feel like it's fair game. You can make fun of it. And I've been amazed at the way Silicon Valley people actually like the show. And they all kind of like the humor. Some of them say it's like too much, it's too close, it's too...
No, I love it when people tell me this. They're like, oh, you worked on the show. This part here, I couldn't watch it. I just had to stop. It was too painful to watch that mirror up to my career,
Yeah.
And that just makes me feel awesome. I'm like, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Or there was a storyline in season 2 where they had a woman that got hired, and then they wanted her and Monica to be friends because, like, you're a woman and you're a woman. Oh, and that came from a real story that we met a woman from Dropbox who was really funny and super cool. But it was one of these things where like 10 people showed up for the meeting, and we all wanted to talk to her, but everybody else kept talking. But she was like an engineer.
She's not just from Dropbox. She runs their engineering. She was.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, she's a serious engineer. She came out of the Python.
Her company was acquired. Her company was acquired, and that's how she ended up at Dropbox, right? Yeah. So she had these, and she had worked at really teeny tiny startups like Pied Piper. So she had great stories. And one of them was, they said to her, I think it was her who said, or maybe it was someone else. It might have been a woman at Google.
Colleen from Facebook.
No, it was a Google woman who said, look, the worst thing I don't mind being the only woman. I've always been the only woman. Like from the time I was a computer science major, we came here once and for a visit, and every meeting was all women, and I was like, do any men work here at Google? I don't know. It was like every meeting was like just full of women, and they were talking about being a woman at Google, what it's like to be a woman at Google and a woman in tech, and a woman who's a woman. There's a woman who's an engineer, but she's a woman. She's a woman engineer. Yeah. So we got this message like, okay, you want to talk about women, and but she was saying, I don't mind being the only woman. The worst thing is when the second woman joins, and then they all look at you and they want you to get along. But I don't have any reason to get along with her just because we're both female. I don't care. I don't necessarily want to be her friend. And that sort of was like, this woman tossed this comment out like as an aside, but they were like, oh, that's such a good storyline.
Do you guys want to share an office? Do you want to sit next to each other?
Yeah, you should get together. You want to go out after work? And it was like really, that was.
I bet you have a lot in common.
So that came out of like a real conversation with someone here. Yeah, but the woman from DocBox 2 Skyped in with us later. She was really good, really, really. I think they should have put her in the show as a cameo. She was like really, really compelling, very engaging. Yeah, but
no, it's really something. But bring it back to the book. One of the things one of the outcomes. So if you read the book, when you get to the end, there's an epilogue. And I don't know if you're a skip that epilogue kind of person. Don't skip it because they went non-linear.
Yeah, we should have called it just the next chapter rather than an epilogue.
But
after I delivered a rough draft of the book, they announced that they had fired the CMO. They were going to fire another guy, but he resigned before my boss, and then my former boss, and then the CEO had been sanctioned for doing something to try to get hold of the manuscript, and they turned it over to law enforcement. So I was like, what the?
Like Computer Fraud and Abuse Act type investigation.
Yeah, like cybercrime. So I ended up having to get interviewed by the FBI cybercrimes guys, and I'm like, but they won't tell me what happened. I had a victim specialist. When you're in one of these, they give you you get a little letter saying, you have a victim specialist, here's your victim number. Like I have a victim number. That's cool. Seriously. Call in and you use your victim identification number and we'll,
It's probably more secure than your social security number.
Yeah, but when you call, well, that's been compromised. That's gone. Like everything's in the wind. Like my social security number is gone. But yes, they did something, and the FBI investigated. My victim specialist won't tell me. The FBI won't tell me. So then I did a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, and unfortunately the book went to bed and we couldn't get this in the book. But afterwards, what came out was that it was also extortion. So somebody there came up with this scheme where we'll hack into his computer or maybe use my old company laptop, and we'll read his email, we'll get the book, and then we'll try to dig up dirt on either me or the publisher or somebody, and it was an extortion scheme to try to kill the book, which is like, the Rupert Pupkin of crime, right? Like just like the most insane criminal mastermind plan of all time. And they totally got caught. So it's like, like the world's worst hackers.
Did Molly not help them?
And until that, right when this happened, I was starting to feel bad because I wrote this book and I was like, kind of making these guys look like doofuses. Maybe that's not.
Yeah, you don't.
Maybe that's unkind. And then this happened. I was like, okay, fine. Maybe assholes. But it was like, seriously, like the world's worst criminals. Like just. And I still don't know. So I got these redacted documents from the FBI, but you can't, and some of them you can fill in, and there's more documents, but the rest of them I'm still trying to get. I'm still trying to get hold of them from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I don't know what's behind, probably not much, but there was a funny twist on the book, which is the book started out to be just a funny book about being an old guy and trying to deal with kooky corporate culture, and then has this dark twist. And I'll tell you, it's weird getting hacked and finding out you've been hacked.
Oh, no,
like I realized if you really want to mess with somebody, you don't even have to hack them. You just have to make them think that maybe they've been hacked, but you won't tell them what. Yeah. So you have to assume that everything you own is in the wind, right? Like your bank accounts, everything's out there, kids' pictures, right? So, and that messes with your head and makes you really paranoid. And I was already fairly paranoid before that, and like this is my tendency.
I mean, did you get many during the fake Steve Jobs days in your Forbes days? I mean, I remember I used to do a publication, and it attracted death threats. For a while, and so I learned really early on in the late 90s.
Source, right?
No, I used to work for the State Department. I published something called The Patterns of Global Terrorism. This is before terrorism was cool.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Really?
And so I would get these death threats. But so you learn early on, if you're lucky, how to manage your persona.
Yeah.
So we have about a minute left. But I mean, did it ever get that dire or?
No. I mean, I had like who's that guy? Oh, John Gruber at Daring Fireball didn't like me. He used to write a lot of bad stuff on his Apple blog about me being a jerk. And Paul Carr at Pando Daily, for whatever reason, I don't know why, just hates me. Why? And so for a while, it just was like, but
Pando's leadership has been under this kind of ridiculous, silly threats. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
from
yeah, oh, that's
companies.
right. Because they had the Uber thing, and that was a big deal. I actually thought about hiring bodyguards. When my thing happened, I wanted to go get bodyguards and show up on CNBC with like Sarah Lacy did, but then like go everywhere with two guys with earbuds in, like, okay, all right, it's clear. But
We have a 5140 over in the
yeah,
upper.
but no, I never had any death threats. I mean, even now, I mean, the book's just a funny book. It's not. Yeah, there's no reason to kill me. I don't think, but they
That's good.
someone put that on the record.
So that's a great place to wrap up. I think.
Yeah, we'll wrap up with that. There is no reason to kill me. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having
to
me.
the,
Thanks.
The
And I'm
conference
happy
and
to
talking with
answer
us
any
and-
questions later. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can find us walking around.
thank you.
Anyone?
Oh, the gopher.
Yeah, I can get you one.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.